Drapo.
And I'm Nathan Robillard.
And we'll be hosting you tonight as we monitor what the New York Times has called one of the closest presidential elections in American politics.
It's almost 8 p.m. here at the University of Rhode Island. Polls in 17 states, including Rhode Island, are just about to close. Turning towards the rest of the country, Virginia's and Georgia's closed an hour ago, and North Carolina closed 30 minutes ago. So a lot of new results coming in.
Aside from the presidential and local candidates that were voted on today, Rhode Islanders also decided either to approve or reject 5 bond questions proposed on their ballots.
So let's look into what these ballot questions were. Question 1 of the ballot asked voters to approve or reject holding a state constitutional convention, which would open up current state constitution for revisions and amendments.
Question 2 on the ballot applied directly to URI as voters were asked to approve or reject a higher education bond that would allocate $160.5 million between Rhode Island College and URI. Peter Gigliotti has more on this bond question.
Of choice, Rhode Island voters will decide on 5 statewide ballot measures on Tuesday, November 5th.
Working on it.
On the ballot being Question 2, the Higher Education Facilities Bond Measure. Question 2 proposes the allocation of $160.5 million to improve higher education facilities for both the University of Rhode Island and Rhode Island College. At URI, $87.5 million would fund the design and construction of a new biomedical sciences building at URI's Kingston campus. And at RIC, the remaining $73 million would finance renovations to Whipple Hall, a facility originally built in 1958 now being used for RIC's Institute for Cybersecurity and Emerging Technologies. Both schools hope that if approved, the projects will expand opportunities for critical medical and cybersecurity discoveries and assist in securing additional research and funding for the workforce and economy of Rhode Island. URI President Mark Parlange emphasized the need for this space, saying, quote, "We already have about 6,500 students studying some aspect of the biological sciences or biological engineering subjects, and we are totally constrained. So currently, we are cramping basically 3 groups into lab spaces where really there should just be 1 research group." And when asked about the Whipple Hall renovations, Congressman Jim Langevin, the distinguished chair for the Institute for Cybersecurity and Emerging Technologies at Rhode Island College, said, quote, "Whipple Hall dates back several decades now and is definitely long overdue for an overhaul and refurbishment." So, as a voter, what else do you need to know? Well, it's worth mentioning that aside from this year's ballot measures, over the last 6 years, higher education bonds have popped up on the ballot 3 separate times for a total accumulation of $277.3 million, leading to many voters' hesitation towards voting yes, claiming that, quote, "enough is enough," and asking for cuts in spending. Despite the drawback from certain voters, the 2 schools are still confident in the benefits of the proposal. Langevin described the proposal as, quote, "an investment in our students, in Rhode Island College, but more especially in our state." Parlange adding on that companies will come to Rhode Island to work with URI students, explaining, quote, "it's part of building a vibrant economy, and I think Rhode Island has a big opportunity. Right now, the state of Rhode Island is pushing this whole life sciences hub." So, just a recap, a vote to approve means you support the state issuing $160.5 million in bonds for these higher education facility improvements, and a vote to reject means you are against it. For more information about where to find your place to vote, go to www.vote.org/polling-place-locator/.
Thank you, Peter. And what are bonds exactly? Bonds are essentially government loans issued towards specific issues which taxpayers then pay back over time with interest added. This wasn't the only bond proposed on Rhode Island's ballot this year, of course.
Question 3 on the ballot asked voters for their approval on an affordable housing bond, which would have allocated $120 million to the state, making it the largest housing bond proposed yet.
Question 4 on the Rhode Island ballot this year was a $53 million green economy bond that would provide funding to 9 different sectors in the state. These were focused on environmental development and sustainability. Our own Maya Hembrough has more information on this bond question.
Not only where to place their national votes, but their local votes. With the presidential election right around the corner, Rhode Island residents are considering not only where to place their national votes, but their local votes as well. Ballot question 4 focuses on the green economy, with a proposal for $53 million in federal funding toward a variety of environmental developments. The Port of Davisville and Quonset would receive $15 million, the largest allocation the bond is proposing, should question 4 be passed. This funding would be used to help rebuild the port's foundations and infrastructure and expand their capacity to support offshore wind vessels. The port is estimated to bring in 1,100 new jobs, according to a spokesperson for the port. The bond has also set aside $15 million for further local infrastructure, flood prevention, and the conservation and resiliency of coastal and land habitats. Save the Bay, a nonprofit organization that supports Narragansett Bay, is advocating for Rhode Islanders to vote yes on 4. Jed Thorpe, the director of advocacy at Save the Bay, said that he thinks most Rhode Islanders recognize that the environment is one of our greatest assets and it's important to invest in. If passed, this would be the 5th green economy bond in the last 5 years, and the state will have invested a total of $259 million during this time.
On the grounds of a solar farm under the beaming sun, Governor Dan McKee signs the country's most aggressive renewable energy legislation.
This is something that, as the ocean state, we should all be very proud of and energized about.
However, the impact on Rhode Island taxpayers is minimal. Emily Lynch, a political science professor at the University of Rhode Island, explained that over the course of 20 years, taxes are dispersed to pay off state debts from past bonds. The remaining $23 million proposed in the bond would be used to fund an industrial site cleanup and development, local recreational facilities, including the Newport Cliff Walk, as well as forest and farmland preservation. Polls will open Tuesday at 7 a.m. in locations across Rhode Island. To find the closest poll near you, visit the Rhode Island Voter Information Center on the state's website.
Thanks, Maya. Finally, the last bond question listed on Rhode Island's ballot this election was question 5, a $10 million bond that would fund arts and culture across the state. If passed, the money would be allocated to capital improvement projects, renovation and preservation for public and nonprofit artistic and cultural centers, including the Tamaqua Museum and the Trinity Rep Theater.
As college students, we are given a choice to either return home to vote on election day or fill out an absentee ballot. Some of the bigger issues on the ballot this year turn to issues such as healthcare, immigration, and economy. So on Tuesday, both candidates gave their closing statements to the public. Kamala Harris took the time to remind voters of the January 6th incident. Trump, however, claimed that he should not have left the White House in 2020 after the election.
Polling places opened up early at 7 this morning. We had our reporters visit polling locations throughout the day to interview some people there on their thoughts.
Divided. We're much more divided. There was one woman that was telling us that she found it very upsetting that we are so divided. And I kept thinking, well, yeah, it can be upsetting, but it's kind of just the way of history, you know. We separate. We have to work out our differences.
Yeah, I actually voted back in New York probably about 2 weeks ago. It is my first time voting. Yeah, I would say it seems more like a joke than anything. The candidates are silly goofy, so I'm kind of scared, but I would say the illegal immigrants, I think, is a big one for me. Just see how they fix it or just improve it.
All right, so we'll kind of shift here as a lot of polls closing at 8 when we started to the states that have officially been called. Right now, Donald Trump with a 95-35 lead in electoral votes over Vice President Kamala Harris, but of course, still very early in the race as we continue to see live updates from AP News coming in. The states that have closed: Vermont, Massachusetts, Connecticut, Rhode Island most recently, and Maryland, all going towards Kamala Harris for her 35 votes, and a number of states leaning her way as well. And for Donald Trump, Oklahoma, it looks like Indiana, Kentucky, West Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, and Florida have all closed in his favor. So right now, Donald Trump has the lead.
And this includes 2 of the battleground states, Georgia and North Carolina. North Carolina, who has turned to Kamala, and Georgia, who has turned towards Trump so far in the election. Now we wait until Pennsylvania's polls close to see where that leads us further in the election. And we'll be right back.
Welcome back to the Cigars coverage here on election night. At this point, we've taken a look at all the confirmed results coming in with Donald Trump leading, and we've had a look at what our reporters have been doing throughout the day at polling places in Rhode Island. We're currently working on getting more reporters in the field to bring you more updates from outside of the office. Until then, we'll take a quick break, but we'll hope to be back with you shortly with more updates.